Thanks, everybody. I want to welcome you all to the 2018 Workers' Memorial Day ceremony. My name is Barbara Bird. I'm Secretary-Treasurer of the Oregon AFL-CIO, and it's great to be here with a bunch of hardy Oregonians who are willing to stand out in the rain to do this work. The Oregon AFL-CIO is committed to the safety and well-being of all working people in Oregon. We're joined today by representatives from the Governor's Office, the Oregon Legislature, and Oregon OSHA. Today we mourn the Oregonians who died on the job and in service to our country in 2017, and we extend our deepest sympathy to their families, some of whom are here with us today. Through our mourning, we commit ourselves to making sure that Oregon workers have the right gear, the right training, and the right precautions to do their jobs as safely as possible. We commit ourselves to protecting the safety and health regulations that prevent needless death and needless sorrow. And we commit ourselves to making sure that every worker returns home safely every day. Too many workers are killed on the job. Thousands are injured each year. The days and the years that are cut off from workers' lives due to occupational diseases are immeasurable. This year, we read a longer list of names. Those names are of people with families and friends and communities, and their abrupt absence is devastating. We're all affected by that absence. We must work harder for a safer Oregon so that one day there are no names to read and every worker can return home safely to their family and friends. It's my honor now to introduce Ilana Pirtle-Guiney from the Office of Governor Kate Brown to read a proclamation.
Thank you, Barbara. As you will hear from others, we're here today to remember those who have lost their lives on the job in Oregon this past year. It is easy to imagine that this is a tragedy that will go away over time. It is easy to imagine that with fewer jobs in the woods, in the mills, with safety precautions, OSHA inspections, and higher awareness, these tragedies will wane until one year there are no names left to read. But we are here today because 49 families can attest to the fact that this isn't the case. 49 families know that this is still today's tragedy. And so it is with deference to those whose lives we did not save, and with faith that we can and will learn to do more, that I deliver the following proclamation on behalf of Governor Brown. Whereas every year tens of thousands of American workers are killed by workplace injuries and occupational disease, and whereas tens of thousands more are permanently disabled and millions injured, and whereas 49 Oregonians died on the job, in service to our country, or from injuries sustained while working in 2017, and whereas by organizing Workers' Memorial Day on April 28th, a day chosen by the unions of the AFL-CIO as a day to remember the victims of workplace injuries and disease, renewing efforts to seek stronger safety and health protection, better standards and enforcement, and fair and just compensation, and rededicating ourselves to improving safety and health in every American workplace. Concerned Americans are determined to prevent these tragedies in the future. Therefore, Kate Brown, Governor of the State of Oregon, proclaims April 28, 2018 to be Workers' Memorial Day in Oregon, and encourages all Oregonians to join in this observance.
Thank you, Ilana. Reverend Richard Davis from the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Salem will now deliver the invocation and lead us in a moment of silence.
Let's join our hearts and minds together in a spirit of prayer. O God, of all times and places and people, God of peace and justice and compassion, who calls us all to lives of meaning and purpose, may we tune our hearts and minds to your presence within us and among us, that we might feel empowered to meet with courage and resolve the challenges and opportunities that lie before us. Today we are gathered to remember and honor and grieve the loss of those workers whose lives were lost on the many jobs they did which served the common good. Hard jobs, dangerous jobs, and oftentimes too low paying. Too often we take for granted all those who put their lives at risk to do essential work. Today we are humbly and sadly mindful of those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, whose lives were tragically ended on the job, and whose families have since known shock and grief and heartbreak. Today our hearts especially go out to you, those of you here who know such loss. May we remember too, in a spirit of gratitude, those brave souls who came before us, who fought against powerful interests in their times, sometimes sacrificing their very lives for the right of workers to join together in collective bargaining to promote their legitimate rights for living wages and safe and humane working conditions. May we find inspiration in their example in our own challenging times. May we thirst for justice and compassion and equity in society, and may we labor together to deconstruct the human-made hells that are created by our greed and indifference and intolerance in our world. May we strengthen our efforts to protect those who work in dangerous conditions. May we recognize the holy power that lies within us, individually and collectively, to bring about a great good in our world. And may we use that power to do so. Amen. May we observe a moment of silence in honor of those who have died in the past year. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Davis. Joining us today to read the names of fallen workers in 2017 is State Representative Teresa Alonso Leon.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to honor all of their names, and my apologies if I don't pronounce it correctly, but I just want you to know that I am honoring every person on the list. Mark Aletki, Ruben Andrade Garcia, Jody Everett, Ryan Bagley, Rodrigo Balazar Martinez, Byron Berry, Michael Brown, Brian Brancher, Colt Campbell, James Chaplin, Bentley Chappell IV, Jose Genaro Colua Sanchez, Brian Conley, Francis Crispin, Artemio Cruz Garcia, Ronald Davis, Pablo Dominguez Amezcua, Jay Elwell, Dominique Ferraro, Ricky Forbes, Christopher Garrett, Ronnie Gansner, Gregory George, Joseph Grainer, Asa Hammond, Vanessa Hazard, Gary Henderson, Justin Hook, William Honeycutt, Martin Lavelle, Sherilyn Lewis, Antonio Mendoza Alcaraz, Douglas Mitchell, Scott Munn, Stephen Netcher, Shane Powell, Mark Price, Robert Prock, Carol Roberts, Dalton Rodriguez, Casey Schlunt, Ronald Schulte, Ronald Spurlock, James Shorten, Raymond Stelzer, Taylor Whitney Lay, Ryan Yancey, Jared Ziegler, and U.S. 4 Staff Sergeant Austin Byron.
Thank you. And we'll now hear from Michael Wood, Administrator of Oregon OSHA.
Welcome, all those of you who are gathered here today. It seems appropriate somehow that we stand together in the memory of these lost ones in a day when the sun is obscured and the rain is threatening to burst forth. Because today is a day of memory, a day of mourning, a day of grieving. For those of you who, like me, who work in the system that is in some fashion responsible for trying to prevent these tragedies, it's a day of recognizing that our work is not only not done, but perhaps is not done as well as we wish it would. For those of you who are gathered here in memory of a lost loved one, we stand with you. I wish that I had some words of wisdom that could make it somehow make sense. I've been coming to these ceremonies for a quarter of a century or more. I've spoken more than a score of times, and I don't have answers. As I think about my ability to speak today, as I think about our ability collectively to address these tragedies when they've occurred, there are no answers. Our tools are inadequate. We cannot make the loss whole. Thank you for being here today. You remind all of us that these are not statistics on a list, that they're not simply unknown names, but each one of these names represents a hole in the life of those they loved. Each one of these names represents a story that was cut short before its time. Each one of these names represents a tragedy, a death that should not have happened. I cannot make sense of it. In some cases, we have the tools to address the underlying problems, but an investigation with citations doesn't bring back loss. In some cases, we don't even have those tools. In some cases, we struggle to understand exactly what happened, and we try to identify ways that we can do better in the future. By your presence here, you remind us of our duty and of our obligation. By your presence here, you demand of me and of all of us that we must do better. I hate these ceremonies, but I would not miss one for the world, because it matters. And all I can offer you at this point is a commitment on my behalf, on the behalf of the organization I lead, that as we go forward, we will rededicate ourselves to the struggle to end needless death in the workplace. We will rededicate ourselves to the struggle to prevent and eliminate those things that can cause serious injury, that can cause illness, that can cause death. We will rededicate ourselves to the struggle to make ceremonies like this unnecessary. Even as I say those words, I realize how little they offer to you. And I wish I could do more. And I promise only that we will do more as we go forward. Thank you, everyone who is gathered here. Please do not leave this place without speaking to these families. They are the reason we are here. They are the reason our work is not done. Thank you, and I am so very sorry.
Thank you, Michael. I too hope that one day soon we will have no names to read on this day. Until then, we will remain committed to advocating for the safety of every worker. Until then, we will gather in services like this across the country every year to call for safer workplaces. We must continue our work because everyone deserves to have safety and protections on the job. Anything less is unacceptable. And I too want to offer my deepest sympathies to the families of those who have lost their loved ones. Our loss is great as well, and we suffer with you in your pain. Thank you all for being here today.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I mean, I've got a celebration Sunday.
You don't.
I didn't bring the little one.
I did the same.